Hey guys, welcome to the Calvinist Contradiction. And today I was going to take a break from the biblical narrative one and just talk about something that keeps popping up in the comments. And so, if you're joining us on YouTube, I also have the podcast going right now. So, check out the podcast or check out the YouTube, vice versa. Give them a like if you like this content. Share God's love with all the nations with me. And also, um, please pray about supporting us. We do this pro bono. I am a pastor in Asia Minor. I do this for free. I take time out of pastoring. I take time out of everything that I do, writing other books and other content to produce this stuff. And so, please pray about supporting our ministry. And there's many ways to do that linked in the description. And so, wanted to say hello and thank you for you know helping me spread this channel. We've gone over 100 subscribers, with which isn't a lot, but we've had 40, 50 for like 4 years. And so within the span of these last couple months, we really a month, we've shot up a lot. So please share and thank you so much. And so let's get on to this. Wanted to talk about just is Calvinism a tenable uh theology. Hey, thank you, Mark. Love that, man. Yeah, we get a lot of he said keep doing what you're doing in this space. Yes, thank you so much, Mark. And that popped up on YouTube for those listening on the podcast. And we are in a small space in a big with a big competition. So we talk about this a lot. uh you know Calvinism is the biggest sect, if I may, or denomination in Protestantism. Now, not everybody says that. I've literally sat with pastors who are on staff at Calvinist churches and talking with their worship leader, their staff, just about things that I don't like that Piper says. I don't like that MacArthur says. I don't like that Sproul says. And they're just like, I can't believe he's saying this. Nobody says this about Piper. And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't have a beef with Piper per se, except for he's teaching bad theology. Um, and they just said, never heard this before. And I just said, I just don't like Calvinism. And they were like, yeah, I'm glad we're not a Calvinistic church. And they're a Calvinistic church. And so, there's this like secret, this closet Calvinism that goes on. I don't know why. I think it's because of this untenable. It's untenable. You cannot live out Calvinism consistently within a church setting. You just cannot, because there's people who are not Calvinists, unless you have all these heady Calvinist guys who aren't afraid and don't live in the closet with their Calvinism to propagate it. If that's not the case, then people buck against it and they just do not see it in the Bible. It has to be spoon fed to them, brainwashed to them, and then they can accept it. And not everybody does that. And so it's very secretive. And so a lot of these big Calvinistic dudes, even though they're Calvinists, they're not very open about it. And so they're closet, they're closed, they keep it's secret. And then they teach it. And then, they kind of like have snuck in through the back door. And it's the biggest part of, and they have the most money. That's what I talk about all the time. Please pray about supporting us over here. I am, our church is on like a shoestring budget, where a Calvinistic church in our region has the most money, and we're in Asia Minor. And so, all the churches are kind of like, um, you know, they're provided for by the Lord for sure. But there's the budget is just it's crazy to be able to propagate Calvinism. But you must sign on the dotted line. You must, say you believe in things that are not scriptural, in my opinion and from my perspective. And so, sorry about that rant, but we want to just talk about this because it keeps popping up in the comment section. Is it a tenable theology? Is it a, practical theology? And I would say no. Why? Because these Calvinists that keep popping up keep asking questions that go against their deterministic worldview. And so, and even if, please understand this, when I say Calvinist, I'm talking about Reformed. I'm talking about doctrines of grace. I'm talking about whatever flavor you want to call it. We're lumping it all under the same. So I have these guys coming, talking in the comment section saying, Reformed theology. I'm not a Calvinist. I'm like, well, dude, okay, if you're not a Calvinist, a Reformed, somebody from the Reformed faith, somebody who propagates meticulous control, total inability, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, perseverance of the saints, the tulip systematic. If you don't want to go with Calvinistic because it has a bad rap or whatever, that's not my fault. That's something you have to work out with your system. But don't come at me with like I'm not a Calvinist, or don't come at other people on the chat. I've seen this. I'm not a Calvinist. That's no excuse for you to propagate bad theology, untenable theology, and then just say, "Well, that's not me." Well, that's what you're doing, and so. Um, I want you to understand that it's, a broader term. And so reformed theology. So they'll say something like, God, he meticulously controls everything and he makes you believe because he's sovereign over all things. And he, all these things that are a tulip in flavor. Okay. So Calvinistic in flavor, reformed in flavor. And then they'll say something like, but if you want to debate this, or they'll say, you need to learn Greek. Or they'll say, why don't you spend more time reading the Bible? Or they'll say, they'll say this brother's wrong. He's deceiving people. This has popped up about Leighton Flowers. And all I want to say to you is you are living, if you're saying these things, an untenable theology. And that is just saying that you cannot practically live out your theology. Why is that? Because you can't say anything bad about anything in a deterministic worldview. And if you do, you're inconsistent and you're living in the Calvinistic contradiction. The whole point of this channel is to wake you up, snap you out of that. As soon as you say, Leighton Flowers, let's just say, I love Leighton. I want to get on a show. Hopefully, we'll get on the show. We'll get together. Leighton Flowers is, the devil. Leighton Flowers is the devil. He's propagating something else. Well, okay. Let's look at this. Your worldview. So we're stepping into your worldview, Calvinistic determinism. Isn't Leighton Flower, even if he is the devil, even if he is propagating falsehoods, he's doing it for God's glory in your worldview, not in our worldview, your worldview, doing it for God's glory. He couldn't do anything except for this before the foundation of the world. He was born to do this. He, every meticulous, dust mite is moved by God. And so Leighton Flowers here, he is moved by God. Me right now, the Calvinist contradiction. This is for God's glory. Even if you believe it's, fit for the for the trash heap. Do not understand. You cannot live because you're consistent, to be not a Calvinist in a contradiction. You say, yep, that is false and God's doing it for his glory. He is literally deceiving people for his glory. That's Calvinism. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand? I cannot stand abortion. I stand against abortion. I talk to people all the time about abortion, and I have a right to do that. Why? Because I believe it is against God's will. I believe that it's not for God's glory, and I believe that it's an abomination from humans solely by their free will theodicy. Okay? It's completely separate away from God. God does not want to burn the babies of Israel to Moloch. But in Calvinistic theology, God made them burn their babies to Moloch. God makes these people abort the fetus, in gestation. No matter how far along in gestation. So, who are you, oh man? This is for God's glory, all to boot. All for God's glory. The millions and millions of babies, God forbid, that get aborted every year are for God's glory and by His own hand in the Calvinistic Reformed tradition. Is this tenable theology? Who are you? Who are you to stand up and say abortion is wrong if you're a Calvinist? Because it was predestined, prescribed before the foundation of the world for his glory to be done by his own hand. Do you understand what I'm talking about now? Where this is not practical theology. This is untenable theology. This is something that is an abomination to God. Jesus's prayer, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's not your will is already done on earth as is in heaven. That would be Calvinistic right there. This is what I'm talking about. How can you live with that? That is one sentence out of all of Jesus's words. But he says, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. How? In a Calvinistic worldview, can you pray this? And I see this all the time. I go to Calvinistic churches and, I went to a Calvinist funeral. This is, the whole time. Super, what's the right word here? Super cautious of saying things like, he chose the Lord, super cautious of saying like, he's uh he knew that his faith, or he knew that where he was going because he was in the Lord. You can't say that in Calvinism. In perseverance of the saints, you don't ever know. Now we talked about this with the how Calvinism and Muslim Islamic people are really strange bedmates in the fact that they share a lot of things in common. In I did a whole video on that. I did a whole episode on that. So on the podcast, go to the YouTube, and I'll do a podcast in the future, how they're strange bedmates. And this is one of them. There is no assurance of faith, because perseverance of the saints, you only persevere if you persevere to the last day of your life. And even then, you don't know if you're elect. Now, this is not biblical. So it's even untenable in the fact that every single Christian out of anybody in all the world can say that I am saved. You pledge your allegiance to Jesus and you're saved. That's the gospel. It's never changed. You pledge your allegiance to Yahweh in the Old Testament, that he will send his Messiah, the one who will make everything right. You are saved. And so you can stand in that. Abraham, I'm never going to see this, but I can stand in the fact that I am righteous before God because I placed my allegiance into him. Okay. Same thing now. I was a heroin addict when I was younger, and I pledged my allegiance to Jesus. Now, he saved me from all that. I totally believe that. But one night when I was at the end of my rope, I pledged my allegiance to Jesus. I just called out, Jesus, you saved me. Um, Jesus, please come. I didn't even know what save meant. I just said, Lord, I'm in the worst position of my life. You need to come, and cried out and put my trust in him. Boom. And I knew from that day until now that I am saved. If I wake up tomorrow and that Jesus thing's not really for me, I'm not saved. Do you understand? It's nobody's in heaven who's gonna be like, just didn't really trust in Jesus, but I'm glad I made it here anyway. No, placing allegiance into Jesus, into your faith. Saying, I pledge allegiance to Jesus that he will save me. That doesn't do anything. I'm not saving myself by saying that. He did all the work. It's done at the cross. How they don't have anything else. So I understand where they're coming at, why they say, oh, well, you saved yourself. How? All the work's done. All I'm saying is I trust in that. I don't trust in money. I don't trust in my own strength. I don't trust in my own ability to do anything. All I trust is, dude, this guy 2,000 years ago paid my price, and I'm going to, hold on to that. I'm going to pledge my allegiance into that. That's all we're talking about here. But you can't do that in Calvinism, so you don't ever know if you're saved. Unfortunately, there's no assurance of faith. Now, you can get, go on Chat GBT. There you go. Go on there and ask the AI. I've done this before. I have some things coming up with this. Just ask them about Calvinism, and it will come up. Yes, there's no assurance of faith. The AI gets confused. Yes, this is inconsistent with all of Christianity, but Calvinists believe, true Calvinists, people in Reformed faith, that there is no assurance of faith. Why is it? I talked with my Calvinistic friend. They said, I'll never know until I die. So you don't have assurance of faith. You can't. Sorry, you cannot. God could be for his own glory. Any Calvinist listening to me, if you're going to live in your worldview consistently, now this is not biblical. This is your worldview. This is your Calvinism. Consistently, thanks, brother. I'm going to read this in a second because it's fun. If you're going to live in your worldview consistently, there's no assurance of faith. Now, there is in the Bible. That's what I'm saying. It's untenable. You cannot live consistently in Calvinism and uphold the pages of these scriptures. Why? Because where I'm going to make a house for you. If it wasn't like that, I would have told you so. But I'm going to prepare a place for you so that you can be what assured in your faith that you're going to be with me later. Duh. This is the thing that makes me so mad. A Calvinist comes out and says, you can't have assurance of faith. He could be tricking you to the day that you die for his own glory. You wouldn't be the elect. And then you would, what can you do, oh man? Because this was prescribed before the foundation of the world for his own glory, that you were tricked into your whole life believing that you placed your allegiance onto God, and then boom, last day, you're not a part of the elect. Now, what kind of theology is this? Again, everybody say with me, baloney sausage. It's not the theology of the Bible. Okay? Trust in me. You believe in God. Also believe in me. Jesus saying, trust in me. Where I'm going to prepare a place for you. You can be assured in your faith. You can have assurance here. So you can. So Brother Mark said, unfortunately, Calvinism is like the leaven that Paul warned about. Even as a charismatic, I still see its impact on your average believer's theology. Absolutely. Are you a fellow Aussie? No, I'm an American, actually. I'm from the East Coast of America. And then he said Romans 10:9, and we'll skip up to that, and I'll read it in a second so that we can. And he said that's the mic drop. Yep, absolutely. Let's read it. 10:9. Let's see here. 10. Here we go. I'll start at 10:8. But what does it say? The world is near you in your the word is near you in your mouth and even in your heart. That is the word of faith which we are preaching, that if you confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord and believe in your heart, God will raise him from the dead and you will be saved. For it's with your heart a person believes, resulting in righteousness, and it's with your mouth he confesses, resulting in salvation. You know what the problem there is, Brother Mark? Is that it's not in Romans 9. Oh man, it's not in Romans 8, it's not in Romans 9. We're going to get into this Romans in context. Is Romans 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 all have a lot of stuff that's, anti-Calvinistic, and then 10 even. And so I listen to this book all the time on Audible, and yeah, man, mic drop, bravo, bro. Really love hearing that. But okay, so here you go. How can you stand against anything in Calvinism? How could you even stand against me saying this? Romans 9 does not propagate Calvinism. Sorry. Romans 8 does not propagate Calvinism. Sorry. You uh, I'm wrong? Well, if I'm wrong, how am I wrong? Why am I wrong? And so that's the things. As a Calvinist, how are you going to stand to defend Calvinism? Because you can't. This comes up in the comments all the time. You understand this wrong. How? God made me understand it wrong. God's making me, you know, God made me in the literal sense out of Calvinism. I felt called to do the Calvinistic contradiction because of the onslaught of Calvinism and their inconsistent theology. But in their worldview, God's making me do it. He's making me say these words right now. He's making me say Calvinism is fit for the dunghill. You know, that's that's from God. And so what's a Calvinist going to say? You can't say that. That's not true. Well, God made me say it for my own glory. So who are you, man? We can just always say that. Brothers and sisters, just reverse that, just say that with who are you, oh man? I've seen this pop up in the comments too. People saying this. Who are you, oh man, to go against the decrees of God? Because that's ultimately what you're doing. Because you live in an untenable systematic, because you live in an untenable theology. It's bologna sausage. It's fit for the dunghill. It's fit for the trash heap. So chuck it out and start reading the Bible as narrative as we have. And we're going to get back into this with the next episode in Genesis 16 and see that Calvinism is not propagated anywhere in the first 16 chapters for sure of Genesis. And so, where's it coming from? And it's eisegesis. You're reading Calvin, you're reading Piper, you're reading Sproul, you're reading MacArthur, and then you stick it back into the Genesis narrative because it's just not there. You would see it in Genesis 4, and we went over that right after the fall with the kids of the person who fell. It's not there. You stuck it back in there. So, you know, I would say you're doing that against God's will. You are not doing God's will on earth as in heaven. You can't say that. You can, unless you live inconsistent, and then you're part of the Calvinist contradiction. The whole point of this channel. Love you guys. Thank you so much, Mark. Love you, brother, out there. You stay safe. We'll talk to you guys later in the week. And again, thank you. I went on vacation for a week. It was awesome. Was at the beach a ton, just having a great time with my family and some precious friends that came in from the States. And so we'll see you on Monday or the early next week for another episode of the Calvinist Contradiction. Talk to you guys later.